had just dealt with a traitor when he was unexpectedly confronted by a dancer. Her calmness caught his attention. Luis teased, "Aren't you afraid of dying?" Alice, unfazed, grabbed a glass of water and splashed it on herself, provocatively responding, "I can offer myself as compensation." As expected, Luis was hooked, and they spent the night passionately together. Afterward, Luis offered Alice a compensation of $1 million, but she refused. She considered the affair between them a normal, casual interaction, but she made it clear that she wanted no further connection. Luis, however, was unwilling to let go. He had become addicted to Alice's body. What he didn't realize was that the passion from the night before had been part of Alice's plan all along. She was here for revenge. Her father's death was closely tied to Luis' fiancée, Bess, and Luis was Bess's protector. Bess took a disgruntled Luis shopping, giving him only half an hour of his time. Alice's sudden appearance caught Luis's full attention. When Bess attempted to slap Alice, Luis intervened, and Bess stormed off in anger. Alice returned to the dressing room, where Luis embraced her waist, clearly enjoying Alice's deliberate provocation of Bess. Alice lightly kissed him and then declared she wasn't interested in playing around with a married man before leaving. Later, Alice received flowers from her admirer, Li Xiao, but refused them. She instructed the assistant to return the flowers to the VIP room, knowing Luis would eventually see them. After her performance, Li Xiao approached Alice in the lounge, intending to take advantage of her. Alice warned him off, stating that she belonged to Luis. In the next moment, Luis appeared and rescued her, teasing her about what she had just said. He enjoyed hearing it, before arrogantly picking Alice up and leaving. From that moment on, Alice became the man's kept mistress. Bess, furious upon learning that her fiancé had taken a mistress, confronted Luis angrily. Before leaving, Alice purposely twisted the door handle to attract Bess's attention. With a provocative expression, Alice made Bess seethe with anger, prompting Bess to raise her hand to slap Alice. Luis scolded Bess sharply, telling her that Alice's existence would not affect the arranged marriage between their families. Luis, upset by Alice's intentional behavior in letting Bess discover them, grabbed her by the neck, kissing her harshly. Later that night, Luis woke from a nightmare, haunted by memories of his mother abandoning him. In his anger and frustration, he burned himself with a cigarette. Alice, waking up to the sight of his self-inflicted wounds, was terrified but didn't question him. Instead, she helped clean his wounds. Furious, Bess found Alice alone and slapped her across the face. Alice quickly retaliated, hinting that as the favored mistress, she might be pregnant and planned to go to the hospital. Alice knew Bess's impulsive nature and anticipated she would take the bait. Using surveillance, Alice saw someone tampering with her car, realizing that the time for her revenge had come. She purposely fell and had Luis drive her to the hospital. When Bess's men saw Luis driving the car with faulty brakes, they panicked and urgently contacted Bess. Fearful that Luis's death could lead to trouble for her family, Bess tried to call Luis, but his phone was unreachable. The car accident happened just as Alice had anticipated, but she hadn't expected Luis to shield her with his body. Originally, Alice had planned to escape on her own, but in the end, she saved Luis and rushed him to the emergency room. As Alice looked at Luis lying on the hospital bed, the man murmured, "Please, don't leave me." Alice quickly reassured him. When Luis regained consciousness, Alice asked the question that had been on her mind, "Why did you save me?" Luis responded, "My things, my people. No one can take them away." Luis's assistant discovered the cause of the brake failure on Alice's car and provided a report. It was clear that Luis had already figured out who the culprit was. Just then, Bess arrived at the hospital, pretending to be concerned for Luis. Alice stepped forward and pointed out that it had been Bess's men who had tampered with her car last night, and there was surveillance footage to prove it. However, to Alice's surprise, Luis interrupted her and defended Bess. He ordered that the matter be dropped right then and there. Disappointed, Alice left. Bess, deliberately walking past Alice, smugly said, "You're just a lowly mistress, while I'm his fiancé. Even if I kill someone, he'll cover it up for me." Luis and his assistant, hidden in the shadows, overheard Bess's arrogant words. Luis had been tolerating Bess's behavior for a reason. He had a mission to complete, and now wasn't the time to alert the enemy. But he still made sure to teach Bess and her people a lesson, warning Bess not to provoke Alice again. Back at home, Luis held Alice and gave her $5 million as compensation. Alice kept replaying Bess's words in her mind. At that moment, she was no longer willing to play along with Luis. Alice drew a knife and lunged at Luis, but the man had already prepared for this. Luis seized Alice by the neck. "You're looking for evidence about the death of the former customs inspector, aren't you? You're his daughter." Alice angrily retorted. "You and Bess's family are all in on it. You've covered up the truth about my father's death." At that moment, Luis finally understood why Alice wanted him dead. He explained that her father's death had nothing to do with him. Luis then told Alice that he had evidence proving Bess had killed her father. In order to obtain it, Alice had to cooperate with him. Dressed seductively, Alice entered a nightclub and performed a sizzling dance. A chip was implanted in her wrist, allowing her to scan the relevant information of her target using her beauty. As she prepared to leave, a fat man blocked her way. At the critical moment, Alex appeared and saved Alice. The sight of Alex's business card frightened the fat man. Alice thanked Alex and left. Outside the nightclub, Luis's assistant was worried about Alice's safety. Luis, however, only glanced at his watch and said coldly, "I told you this mission was yours alone. I won't offer any help." Just before Luis was about to leave, Alice arrived at the meeting point in time. Luis complimented her, saying, "You've got some skills." Back at home, Alice cut open her wrist to remove the chip. Luis watched as her wrist bled, then leaned down and kissed it, before perversely commenting, "Your blood is really sweet." He then kissed Alice passionately. Alice obtained the evidence of her father's suspicious death, but Luis warned her not to file a lawsuit. The man had his own plans, and he wouldn't allow Alice to mess them up. Luis knew the woman before him was extremely clever. He took out a photo of Henry, and sure enough, Alice's demeanor faltered. He was her only remaining family. Alice immediately warned Luis not to lay a hand on her brother. Luis coldly replied, "Henry works as a customs officer. If you don't listen to me, I'll assign him some dangerous jobs." Alice was clearly frightened, and Luis pinned her in front of him and kissed her roughly. "Our relationship can't be severed. You'll only ever be my mistress," he stated. Alice returned to the dance troupe, not expecting Alex, someone she had only met briefly, to seek her out. They agreed to meet for lunch, where Alice discovered Alex was actually Luis's brother-in-law. Alice thanked Alex for helping her, and he suggested they dance as a token of her gratitude. Alex sat down at the piano to accompany her, and Alice danced gracefully. Luis secretly met with his superior and handed over the materials Alice had obtained. It turned out that Luis was working on a task related to smuggling, and the head of the criminal organization was Bess's family. As such, he sacrificed his personal reputation by marrying her in order to gather more evidence. His superior mentioned that they had intercepted an anonymous tip-off, nearly alerting the criminals. Luis knew Alice was behind it. Holding the tip-off letter and related evidence, he burned them in front of Alice. Alice tried to reach into the fire with her bare hands to retrieve the envelope. Luis was horrified, and he grabbed her, saying, "Trust me, I'll avenge you." Alice visited the cemetery to apologize to her father, feeling that her rash actions had prevented him from clearing his name. To her surprise, she ran into Alex at the cemetery. It turned out he was there to pay respects to his ex-girlfriend, who, like Alice, had been a dancer. It seemed that Alex had projected his feelings for his former lover onto Alice. Luis ruined Alice's puzzle, tore open her skirt, and carried her to bed for another passionate encounter. Afterwards, Luis once again promised Alice that he would help her take revenge, but she needed to obey him. For the next couple of days, Alice wasn't allowed to trust anyone except him. The next day, Alex invited Alice to a banquet, but when she arrived, she realized it was actually Luis and Bess's engagement party. The obnoxious Bess threw water at Alice, and Alex immediately shielded her. He then stated that, as his niece-in-law, Bess should show respect to his girlfriend. This scene was witnessed by Luis. Alex introduced Alice to Luis, saying, "She'll soon be your little aunt." Furious, Luis stormed over to the engagement party. At that moment, Luis had completely lost interest in playing games. He hastily put on the engagement ring, tossed Bess aside, and left the party under the pretense of work. In the middle of the night, Luis ordered Alice to come to his house. With tears in his eyes, he questioned Alice when she had started seeing Alex. Alice insisted it was just a game, and that she and Alex were only ordinary friends. Luis didn't believe her, and used Henry's life to threaten Alice. The woman had no choice but to accept the man's punishment. Alice went out in the rain late that night, searching for the ring Luis had lost. A thunderclap suddenly struck, and Luis reacted strongly. He saw the injuries on Alice's body and told her to stop searching for the ring. He declared that this lesson was over. Luis went back home and drank heavily. He once again used a cigarette to harm himself. As the memories of his mother abandoning him resurfaced, he couldn't contain his pain. Alice, worried about him, returned to his house and stopped him from hurting himself further. Luis curiously asked why she had come back, and Alice simply answered, "If you die, who will avenge me?" Alice carefully tended to his wounds, and the man fell asleep leaning against her. Meanwhile, Bess found out about Alice's anonymous report and immediately ordered Alice's death. Alice met Alex, who apologized for calling her his girlfriend at the banquet, hoping she could forgive him. However, an unexpected event occurred quickly. Alice and Alex were both kidnapped. Luis received news of Alice's disappearance and, in panic, led his subordinates to search for her. Alice had already figured out who had come to silence her, and in a critical moment, Alex took a knife for her. Luis arrived just in time to save Alice, and Alex could only watch as the woman he cared for was taken away by his nephew. Luis ordered his assistant to act and begin closing in on Bess's family. Soon after, the Bess group was raided and shut down by the police for involvement in smuggling. Once Alex's wounds healed, he revealed his true identity. He threatened the male shareholders of the Bess group, telling them to accuse Bess of murder and smuggling, or their families would be in danger. No one knew that Alex had been pulling the strings behind everything. Alice learned that Bess had finally been arrested and burst into tears of joy. She apologized to Luis for previously misunderstanding his actions, and she guessed that his mission had been to infiltrate. As Alice spoke, she didn't realize that the man was preparing to give her a ring. When Alice mentioned that they would return to being strangers, Luis went wild. He grabbed her and fiercely declared, "Until I say otherwise, you can only be my mistress." Luis carried her to bed, took off his belt and punished her, then loved her passionately. Alice discovered she was being restricted from leaving the country, and she knew it was Luis's doing. Luis, with a cold look, forced Alice to put on the ring. Just then, Alex arrived at the dance troupe's break room with flowers. Luis deliberately kissed Alice and teased, "Do you want Alex to see how desperate you look right now?" As Alex was about to enter the room, Alice opened the door. She had no choice but to talk to Alex outside the door. Unbeknownst to Alex, Luis was behind Alice, doing as he pleased. After Alex left, Luis saw the hurt in Alice's eyes and could only apologize. Luis's assistant informed him that the Bess Group case had been submitted to the prosecutor's office, but some of their overseas funds were unaccounted for. The superior had arranged for an undercover investigation. Luis learned that the undercover agent was Henry and went to see the superior to request that the investigation be withdrawn. However, he was met with a refusal. Cunning Alex invited Alice to a family dinner, using his elder brother's poor health as an excuse to meet his girlfriend. Alice, the kind-hearted woman, agreed without suspecting anything. To her surprise, Luis was also present at the dinner. Alice was at a loss, and Luis teasingly remarked that he and his little Aunt Alice were very familiar with each other. Feeling uneasy, Alice went to the bathroom. Luis pushed the door open and entered. Alice didn't dare to scream and explained herself to Luis. He believed her and kissed her deeply, deliberately calling her "Little Aunt." How exciting. Luis warned Alice to stay away from Alex from now on. Meanwhile, Luis's father told Alex that he was planning to hand over the management of the group to Luis, but he wouldn't leave Alex empty-handed. A flicker of resentment and hatred crossed Alex's eyes. When Alex prepared to leave with Alice, Luis intentionally wrapped his arm around her and left in front of Alex. In a fit of rage, Alex deliberately poisoned his brother, and soon Luis's father was hospitalized. Luis rushed to the hospital to see his father one last time. His father left him a final message. He revealed that he knew Luis had been searching for his mother, but in reality, she had died years ago after jumping off a building. When Luis's mother abandoned him, a young Luis had run after her car and ended up in a car accident. Luis's father had hidden the harsh truth, and the old man hoped that his son would not hate him before passing away suddenly. On the other side, Alice received news of her brother's disappearance as an undercover agent. When Luis returned home, Alice angrily confronted him. At that moment, Alice didn't want to hear any of his explanations. She went into a frenzy, grabbing a knife and threatening Luis. "I'm no longer your mistress. Unfreeze my passport. I'm going to find my brother." Luis, worried that Alice might harm herself, had no choice but to let her go. Just then, Alice received a call from the missing Henry. Henry told his sister, "Father died because he was investigating the Best Group's smuggling activities. The proceeds from the group's smuggling are flowing into an overseas account. I've traced the account's owner, and his name is Vincent." Alice was about to contact Luis when the name sounded extremely familiar. After digging through some files, she found out that the person with that name was Alex. Alice became even more afraid to contact Luis since Alex was his uncle. She decided to take a risk and send Alex to the police. Alice deliberately danced a seductive dance for Alex, and as expected, Alex became completely infatuated with her. Luis, deeply troubled by Alice's departure, drowned his sorrows in alcohol. When he tried to hurt himself again, he thought of Alice and decided to turn his life around. Meanwhile, Alex seized the opportunity to take over Luis's inheritance and fully controlled the family business. A male shareholder approached Alice with a proposal for cooperation. He held a deep grudge against Alex, recalling that Alex had promised him his family's safety in exchange for testifying against the Best Group. However, Alex had broken his promise. Alice played along with the male shareholder, and when she was about to help Alex, Luis, unaware of the situation, shielded her from a bullet. Alice gained Alex's trust, just as she had intended. Once Luis regained his senses, he immediately found Alice and begged for her forgiveness, pleading for a chance to start over. He begged her not to be with Alex. Alice knew that the sly Alex was likely hiding in the shadows, testing her loyalty. She could only heartlessly reject Luis and throw away his ring. Luis, caught in the rain, searched desperately for the ring, as it was the last memento from his mother. His search for the ring mirrored the way Alice had once searched for it. In truth, Alice hadn't thrown the ring away. She had lied to Luis. She could only silently apologize in her heart. Luis believed that there was no future for him and Alice. Just then, he received a call from Henry, learning the truth. Alice arrived at Alex's home, and as soon as Alex left, she hurried to open the safe. However, Alex returned unexpectedly. In the chaos, Luis entered the room and forcefully kissed her, demanding that she cooperate and call out. Alex punched his nephew, and a struggle broke out between Luis and Alex. During the commotion, Alice managed to take the documents. Alex, holding Alice tightly, hissed, "You're mine. I won't let anyone have you." Alice went to Luis's house to treat his wounds. Luis confessed that he already knew the truth about her relationship with Alex through Henry. Luis promised that once he found the evidence, he would arrest Alex according to the law. Alice took out the incriminating evidence Alex had hidden in his safe, which contained confidential information about Luis's mother's death. Luis found the housekeeper from back then and learned the cruel truth. His mother's death was actually related to Alex. Alex had killed his then-girlfriend, and when Luis's mother discovered the murder, Alex pushed her down the stairs to silence her. Luis and Alice teamed up, both seeking justice for their deceased loved ones. Luis uncovered evidence of Alex's business crimes and, using a shareholder meeting, ousted Alex. Luis regained his inheritance and company, and then he intentionally provoked Alex because he hadn't yet found direct evidence proving Alex had killed his mother. He wanted Alex to attack him. Alice saw the news of Luis's supposed death by drowning and broke down in tears. She gathered the evidence Luis had sent her and was on her way to the police station. Alex, hiding nearby, ambushed Alice, pulling her from the car and violently attacking her. What Alex didn't realize was that the entire incident was being recorded by the car's dashcam. Luis wasn't dead. He came to rescue Alice, and with the sound of sirens, a crazed Alex fired at them. Alice woke up in the hospital, searching for Luis. In the hallway of the hospital, the two wounded souls crossed paths. Alice went to visit her father's grave, and there she met Luis, who was also there to honor his mother's memory. The two of them resolved their misunderstandings, and Alice prepared to go on an overseas tour for 2 years. As she was about to leave, Luis asked, "Alice, can I pursue you again when you return?" Alice smiled and replied, "Let's talk about it when I come back." 2 years later, Luis's assistant came to Alice with a complaint. "If you don't come back soon, Luis's chastity is at risk. Beautiful women are all after him." Luis attended a gathering where many women offered to sit with him, but he rejected all of them. Then he saw a familiar figure. Alice had returned. The woman confidently climbed into his lap, saying, "I've been waiting for someone to pursue me." The story ends. Do you like Alice's choice?